Hi, it's Mr. V. Today's our last day of Algebra 2 Honors Summer School. I'm going to work through some example problems from conics, and I don't know how helpful this will be, but I'm going to show you my thought process. The questions that you will see are like what you're going to be tested on, except they will be multiple choice. So let's work through some of these, and you can speed this up or slow it down at your leisure. This first question, we're asked to graph the circle. To graph the circle, I need to know the center, HK, and I need to know the radius. And my center is going to be at -1, -2. My radius will be 4. So if I go -1, -2, and I go up 4 and around 4 and down 4, something like this. My center is -6 and -5. So my equation would look like x minus a -6, which is +6 squared, plus y minus a -5, which is +5 squared, is equal to c squared, which is 149. Classify each conic and write each equation in standard form. Here I notice I have a y squared, and I do not have any x terms to that power. So I know this is going to be a parabola, and I know that since it's going to be x equals, it will be opening horizontally. So if I rewrite this as x equals y squared minus 2y, I know that it's going to be opening towards the right because the leading coefficient is 1. I can factor this as y times y minus 2. So my zeros are 0 and 2. It'll pass through these 2 points. The axis of symmetry, which is halfway between those, is where y is equal to 1. When y is equal to 1 and I substitute it into my x equation, I get x is equal to 1 minus 2, which is -1. So it'll cross through here, and it'll open this direction. Classify each conic, write it in standard form. Here we have an x squared, and we have a y squared. And I know that this has got a plus in between it, so it's going to be an ellipse. And I can write this as 49x squared plus, minus 196x plus some number that will complete the square, make this a perfect square, plus 4y squared is equal to 0. And whatever I add to the left side, I'll have to add to the right side. Well, to figure out what this is going to be, I'm going to use 7x, and here we'll have 7x, and that'll give me 49x squared, my first term. To get this second terms to be equal to 196, if I divide it by 2 and then take that number, I'm going to find that this is going to be -14 and -14, which will give me a total of 196x, and then I get a plus 196. So I'm going to add 196 to both sides of this equation. And so here we have 7x minus 14 squared plus 4y squared is equal to 196. I can also write this as 7 squared, which is 49 times x minus 2 squared plus 4y squared is equal to 196. When I divide both sides by 196 to get it equal to 1 in the standard form, I get x minus 2 squared over 4 plus y squared over 49 is equal to 1, and sure enough, that checks with what we've got. So our center is going to be at 0. It's going to be at 0, 2. And I'm sorry, did I do that right? 0, 0, 2 here. And my 0, 2, just like I said, didn't write it, was not thinking. So my a value, if I look back at my formula, the a value is always greater than b. And since my a value is going to be like this, my vertex will be at 0a and 0 negative a if the center is at 0, 0. In which case, here my center is at 0, 2. So it's going to be plus or minus in this direction because my y value has the a underneath it. So this will be adding 7 to it in this direction, subtracting 7 in this direction. adding 2 in this direction and subtracting 2. So it's going to be long and thin. You're seeing my thought process as we're going through this because I've not done these before. I'm going to have a y squared term and a negative x squared term. So this will make this a hyperbola because it's got a positive y and a negative x. And I need to complete the square again. So I'm going to go 4y squared minus 8y plus some number to complete the square minus y 9x squared, and I'll put the 32 on the other side of the equation. And what number completes this square? Well, if I go 2y times 2y, that gives me my 4y squared. And these two values together have to add up to negative 8y. So if I divide this by 2, I get negative 2 and negative 2 and a 4. I'm going to add 4 to both sides of the equation. Anything you do to the left side, you do to the right. So this becomes 2y minus 2 squared minus 9x squared is equal to 36. I can also write this as 2 squared, which is 4 times y minus 1 squared minus 9 times x squared is equal to 36. Divide both sides by 36 and I get y minus 1 squared over 9 minus x squared over 4 is equal to 1. And this is the standard form of a hyperbola. And sure enough, it matches with what we've got over here. So my center is going to be in the x direction 0, and in the y direction it'll be 1. That's my center. If I look back at my equation, I know that since the y squared over 9 is the positive part of this equation, not here, it would be right here, this, my y squared, that means that my vertexes are going to be at 0a. So I can write the vertex is at 0. A would be 3 up here or 3 down. 1, 2, 3. That's my vertex. And it's going to open down, something like this. Identify the vertices and focus of each and then sketch the graph. This is going to be an ellipse. I've got a positive number here. My 0 value is going to be, first of all, this number is larger than the other two. In the ellipse, the A is always larger than the B, and since it's below the Y, I know that this is going to be a vertical orientation, and my A value will be 5. My HK, my center, is equal to negative 4, 1, and my B value, which is the B value is going to be right here, plus or minus, and that's underneath the X in the equation. B value is equal to 1. So I can graph this by looking at negative 4, 1. There's my center. And I'm going to go a positive 5 to get up to this point, or a negative 5 to get down here, and a positive 1 or negative 1. And sure enough, there's my graph. Focuses, the vertices are, let's see, the focus, I need to know what the C is. And to do the C for an ellipse, it's C squared is equal to A squared minus B squared. So C squared is equal to 25 minus 1, or 24. And the square root of 24 simplifies to 2 times the square root of 6. So that's going to be my C value. Now C is going to be along this axis, and it's going to be starting at 1. So it'll be 1 plus 2 times the square root of 6, or 1 minus 2 times the square root of 6 in the y direction to the square root of 6. What am I thinking of? Let's go backward. Square root of 6 in the y direction. And the x value of that is going to be at negative 4. And that's for the vertices. I mean, for the foci. And the vertices are going to be at these points here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we have an ellipse. It's got a plus sign in between. I notice that the larger number is underneath the x, and in my formula, when the larger number, a is always greater than b, is underneath the x, I know that this is going to be a horizontal orientation. So my hk, the center of my graph, is going to be at 3, comma, -1. My a value is going to be larger than the b. A is equal to 3, and b is equal to 1. And my c value is equal to, in the formula, c squared is equal to a squared minus b squared. So c squared is equal to a squared minus b squared. Or c is equal to the square root of 8, which simplifies to 2 times the square root of 2. So I can graph this by looking at 3, 1, 2, 3, -1. And I'm going to go since this is horizontal, I'll go 3 in the positive direction and 3 in the negative direction. Is that right? 3? I'm at 3. 3 in the positive direction, 3 in the negative direction. I'm going to go 1 in the positive direction and 1 in the negative direction. Those are my vertices and co-vertices. And my foci are going to be along this line. So in the y, it's going to be at -1. And in the x direction, it's going to start at 3, and it's going to go plus this 2 times the square root of 2, or it's going to go 3 minus 2 times the square root of 2. One more. Let's see. It says, then sketch the graph. So we will do this where we identify the vertices and sketch the graph. Again, my center is going to be at -2, comma, 0. And the larger number is underneath the y. When the larger number, a is always greater than b, is underneath the y, I know it's going to be a vertical orientation. So I can write this as my a value is going to equal to the square root of 45. My b value is equal to the square root of 5. And my c value, c squared is equal to a squared minus b squared. So c looks like it will be the square root of 40. So 45 minus 5, c squared is equal to 40, and c would equal to the square root of 40. So if I were to graph this, I have -2, 0 as my center. My vertices are going to be -2. It's going to be along this line. The x value is equal to -2, so it'll be at -2, and then I have to do the y value, and I'm going to start at 0. So I'll do 0 plus the square root of 45, which is 3 times the square root of 5, and -2, 0 minus 3 times the square root of 5. Those are for the vertices. And for the foci, it's going to be along this same line, so it'll be at -2, and I will do 0 plus the square root of 40, which is 2 times the square root of 10, and a negative. If I want to do the co-vertices, I could take along the 0 axis, I could take my -2 plus or minus the square root of 5. Okay. Use the information provided to write the standard form of each ellipse. So this is going in the x direction, is staying the same here for the vertices. And if the x direction is the same for the vertices of an ellipse, the vertices of an ellipse, if the x part of it is staying the same, that means it's going to be a horizontal orientation. My a value will be the number next to that. So if this is going to be, if I were to sketch a graph of it, it's going to be along the line, let's see, y is equal to 1. It's going to be along this line, and I'm at 0 and -18. So halfway between those two is going to be my starting point. My center would be at, in the x direction, -9, in the y direction, 1. That's my hk. And for the vertex, let's say, and here we have a 1 and a 1 constant. So if I'm at negative 9, 1 is my center, this means that for the A value is going to equal to going from negative 9 to 0 would be 9, or it could be a minus 9. A negative 9 minus 9 would be a negative 18. My C value, and I think it's the C value, let's just check this. The C value is going to be for the focus, and the C value is going to be, I'm starting at negative 9. I have to go plus or minus the square root of 77. And we know that in an ellipse, the formula is C squared is equal to A squared minus B squared. So I have 81 minus 77 is equal to my B value, squared value. B squared is equal to 4, and B is equal to 2. So to write the equation in the standard ellipse form, I need to know my my center. So I have x plus 9 squared, and I'm going to put this as a plus sign in between it. And for the y squared, y value is going to be y minus 1 squared, and it's going to equal to 1. On the x direction, let's see, since this is horizontally located, I'm going to take my A value underneath this, which would be 81, my y value underneath this, which would be my B squared would be 4. And there's my equation. All right, let's do another. Here we have the the y values are staying the same. And if the y values stay the same is this an ellipse? This is going to be an ellipse. So I'll have a plus sign in between the two terms. And my y value is staying the same. Since the y value is staying the same, it would be like as if it were like this one here. So it's going to be a horizontal orientation. And let's look at this. The horizontal orientation, the y values stay the same. At a negative 6, it's going to be across here. And my values are 2 and 16. 16. So halfway between those two is at 2, 9. This is at negative 6. Negative 6. And at 9, negative 6 is where I'm going to be at my center. So my HK values, which is what I need to write this equation, are at 9 and negative 6. Then we can say, well, starting at the 9 to go to the vertex, to get to 16, I have to go plus 7. So my A value is equal to plus 7. If I'm going to the focus, will be my C value. I'm going to go plus or minus 2 times the square root of 6. So A squared is equal to 49, and C squared is equal to 4 times 6, which is 24. So my B squared value is equal to 25. And when I write the equation, I get x minus 9. This is my center, and this is going to be squared, and I'll have a plus sign because it's an ellipse, and a y plus 6 squared, and it's all going to equal to 1. And underneath the x values, I'll put my A value, which is A squared value, which is 49, and under this I'll put my B squared value, which is 25. Here we have the same kind of thing. This time my A values are staying constant, in which case if I look at my formula for an ellipse, when the A values stay constant, that is 0, 0, 0, 0, they're all of the constant here, only it's not going to be 0 this time because it's going to be at my center. So if I were to just sketch this real quickly, at 7 is my x value. This is going to be my axis of symmetry. I'm going to be at negative 4 and 12. So this will be at 7, 12, and 7, negative 4. And halfway between negative 4 and 12 is going to be at 4. So at 7, 4 is my center. And to get to the, I know that this is vertical orientation. So I'm going to have, according to my formula, for it to be vertical orientation, I'll have the y divided by the a and the x divided by the b. So I need to know what my a and my b value is. For the foci, it's going to be my 4 plus the square root of 15, or 4 minus the square root of 15. So my a is equal to, not a, this is my c. C is equal to square root of 15. My a value is going to be, what do I go from a to get to 12? And a, this would be 8. It would be either plus or minus 8 from starting at 4. And this is, we know that in a ellipse, c squared is equal to a squared minus b squared. So I can write this as 15 is equal to 64 minus b squared. B squared is equal to 49. And we write the equation. I'm going to write the y values first, because I know that it's going to be, the larger number is going to be underneath the y's. So I'm going to write y minus 4 squared, and I'll have a plus sign and an x minus 7 squared, and it's got to equal to 1. And my larger value, my a value goes, my a value goes under here, a squared, which is 64, and my b squared goes here, which is 49. Now we're on a roll. Let's stop sharing this right now. I'll give the rest of these examples in a second video.